So here we go. So this is kind of a series. It's a little makeshift on purpose because of the fact that um, it's kind of difficult to bring all these issues together. The first video, which I did as a kind of a response to Comic Skeptic about was, is homosexuality immoral? And what is the, or at least his kind of responding to his video as far as him arguing that it is amoral, that it doesn't matter what a person does with their body or whether they feel like it was by nature or a choice that they've made, because it's part of an amoral sphere separated from the moral sphere of society. And so then followed that up with, well, is homosexuality immoral? And confronting the idea that I don't think that that is an ideal matrix. I think that instead we should be deciding and determining what is moral, the best things in society, the best things to be kind of reached for as far as promoting well-being, and that once we've reached those things, the stuff that's not in that inside that fold would be immoral by default. And then I kind of approached the third, which seems a little bit disjointed from the other two, about hills to die on. And the reason why I did that one before the one that's here today is I do think that in a lot of instances that people are not making decisions about what they join themselves to, what they get involved with, on the basis of what is moral or immoral. They're mainly getting into these things is because they're seeking a cause to be a part of. I think that's what causes a lot of people to get involved with things like sports teams when they're in high school, or like they're looking for a meaning, they're looking for a purpose, they're looking, people, like their parents will put them into these things as well to kind of instill in them discipline and the value of hard work, these kind of values. And so you get into football, baseball, soccer, whatever, right? Band, musical instruments, because then you begin to learn things like the value of hard work and the kind of progress that comes from kind of ritual discipline and stuff. And then we also tend to get involved with a lot of causes that our parents were involved with, whether that is that they went to church, and so now that I've got kids, even if I don't necessarily agree with Christianity or with whatever, I'm going to take my kids to church because me going to church as a kid helped me form good kind of morals, and I think that'll be good for my kids as well, right? And that this is just kind of a thing that our society does. I'm going to join this political party. Because this is what, like, we have a collected kind of set of beliefs, a platform that we all generally agree about. There's fringes here and there, but mainstream, we all generally agree about opinion-wise about these issues. And it really, like, they use very moralistic rhetoric in these things. Plastic in the ocean, the abuse of animals, they use very moralized rhetoric. But I think that if you really pressed an individual on, in general, a lot of the Antifa members and things, if you really pressed them on things, it really wouldn't have anything to do with the actual moral tenets of what they're talking about. It really comes down to that this is where I go to for community, this is where I go to for identity, this is where I go to that I am who I am and we are who we are based on what we are against. We are not that, therefore we are this. So I kind of put that first. But now I want to actually address the question of, is homosexuality moral, immoral, or amoral? As far as my actual opinion. And this is what I think. By analogy. With heterosexuality, it's very clear. I don't think anyone would say that heterosexuality is immoral, is immoral in and of itself, or that cross-sexual or opposite sex attraction is immoral in and of itself. I don't think anyone would make an argument for that, but there are certain behaviors that heterosexual individuals or opposite sex individuals will engage in which are clearly immoral, such as rape, such as incest, such as we can get deep into the trenches as far as the laundry list of what those things are, right? I think that if we want to be balanced, that we have to also state that homosexuality or same-sex attraction in general, in itself, would not be moral either. And in that way, I'd say that I kind of, with limitations, agree with what Comic Skeptic was saying, that the orientation or the attraction in and of itself is not necessarily immoral. However, when you follow it through to behaviors, we still go back to what is the best thing for society, what is the ideal. Because as a Christian, I see that people say that Jesus never forbade homosexuality in the New Testament, but he does definitely state what the ultimate end of relationships is, in response to a question by the religious leaders, that it should be man and woman forever, that you shouldn't be allowed to divorce except in the instance of sexual immorality, that it was always meant to, that you have one man and one woman forever, and that just because you experience same-sex attraction does not obligate you to follow through with them. And it might seem like, well, you're telling somebody to live contrary to the way that they were made, which is kind of the nature argument for it, which we don't know that for sure. As far as is it nature, is it nurture, is it a personal choice, is it something that's ingrained to you from birth? Honestly, we just don't know that. Anyone that claims to know that is either a propagandist or just kind of repeating rhetoric. So we don't know that. But either way, as a heterosexual male, I go out into the community, I go down to the beach, I go to all these different, and your body responds to sexual or sensual stimuli, but that is not an obligate instance where I have to follow through on it. I'm not obligated. In fact, because I'm married, I'm obligated not to respond to it. And in the same way, just because you feel attracted to this person or that person, doesn't matter any of the particular details about it, just because you feel attracted to someone does not necessarily indicate that you should pursue them. I think that that's something that's been deeply lost on society, is this idea that just because you feel a certain way in a specific moment, that you are then necessarily obligated to follow it through to its most extreme conclusions without ever second guessing, without ever considering the deeper or the more kind of consequential elements of it. So, all that aside, let's say this. I don't believe that homosexuality, the orientation, the inclination, is necessarily immoral, but as soon as you tie that desire into behavior, whether that is pursuing lust, pornography, relationships, sexual relationships, marriage, once you begin to tie that to behavior, it immediately becomes not the ideal that God created all humans to experience, and by default becomes immoral.